Hello everyone, welcome to the next class. So in this class, we're going to talk about the chmod command, which is widely used in Linux, right? Its purpose is to grant permissions, change permissions, or remove permissions on a specific file or directory or a set of files for a user, right? A group of users or for any other users. When I say user, I mean primarily the owner user, right? The user group or any other user. So this command is widely used by anyone working with Linux on any distribution, right? And many times as an Oracle DBA, you'll also need to use this command, right? So its main purpose is just that, to grant, change, and remove permissions for a file or a directory, right? So we've already talked a bit here about permissions, right? We can see this more in practice when, for example, we run the command ls-l in a certain directory. We can see, for instance, that something is a directory because it has a D in front, and we can see the permissions here, right? Regarding a file or a directory, the letters here represent, right, the permissions of the owner of the directory or file, which in this case is root. These permissions here refer to what the root owner has over this directory, such as read, right? They can read. Here they can't write, they don't have write permission for this directory, and they can execute programs, and it's the same for the others. It's the same thing for each directory as well. The next three letters refer to the permissions for the group, which would be this element here. In this case, it's root, but it could be another group that would be responsible for a directory. And within a group, there would be users who belong to that group. And when you grant permissions to a group, you're indirectly giving permissions to the users who are in that group. We'll look at this later on, okay? And here, these are the permissions for this directory or for a file for all other users, all right? Who are neither the owner nor part of the group, all right? So let's consider a situation where you might find yourself in a position where you need, for example, to grant specific access permissions, okay? These permissions are typically assigned to a particular entity, in this case, the owner. We can clearly and precisely identify this owner within the system, often represented here by the distinct letter U, which serves as a clear and unambiguous identifier, right? Where you grant read, write, and execute permissions on a specific file, I could also, using the very same chmod command, effectively give permissions to the entire group, right? This is quite useful. I could easily change the permissions for a specific group, and right here I am granting or changing these permissions to allow for both reading and writing capabilities. And all the other users who are neither the owner nor in the group already assigned to this file, all the other users have only read permission, okay? So chmod, which is the command used to set and change permissions, basically works with these letters, where Ju identifies the owner, G the group, and O stands for others, meaning other users. And here, after that, I specify what the permissions are, okay? So this is one of the ways you can assign permissions to a directory. Here, it could be the name of the directory. I can also use the relative or absolute path, as we saw in previous lessons, by using the slash, okay? So this would be one way for us to set permissions using letters. Another way that you might see in some documentation or may have already seen is the octal method using numbers, okay, which goes from 0 to 8. That's why it's called octal, actually from 0 to 7, right? That's why it's octal. So 0 means no permission. 1, only execute. 2, only write. 3, write and execute. 4, only read. And the highest level which is level 7, gives all permissions, which can be for a file or for a directory, right? You can also set permissions using 7 or any other number for the owner user, then for the group, and then for other users by directly using a single number. For example, if you set 777, you're saying that the owner user has the right to read, write, and execute. The second 7 refers to the group, and the third 7 refers to other users. So you're saying that everyone, right, has permission to read, write, and execute, right? Here's a practical example. If I were to run the chmod command with the specific permissions of 764 on this particular file, I am essentially saying that the file's designated owner possesses the full permission set of 7, which comprehensively means they have the ability to read, to write, and to execute that file. The group has permission 6, which means only read and write. Okay? And the 4 refers to all other users. All other users can only read. All right? Let's look at a practical example. Okay? So we can work together here in a lab setting. So here I go to the home directory, to my home, which is actually, I'm going directly to the home directory. Okay? So here I am in the home directory, which in this case is the root user's home, right? Because I'm logged in as root. If it were a regular user, it would be in that user's home directory. And here I'm going to create a file for our lab, an empty file, using the touch command. So here, using the touch command, we create a file just for our lab with no data in it. If you want to check the contents of this file, just run the cat command, as we've already seen, but there's no data in it. I could even edit this file with VI, with V, or with nano, okay? But the idea here is just for us to work on the issues related to permissions. Now let's just use this command to check the existing permissions on this file we created. So here, look, this file we created, by default, it already created this file here. Who is the user creating this file? Who is currently logged in and creating this file? Root. So the owner of the file is root. What is root's default group? Root group. What are the permissions, okay, that were given to this file? So I know it's a file because there's no D here. The permissions for root, the owner, are read and write. And since it's a txt file, this file is not executable. It doesn't have, for example, X permission to execute because it can't be executed in any way. What are the permissions automatically given here to the root group? Only read. And what are the default permissions given to all other users? Only read, okay? So how do we change that? For example, imagine I truly want to give explicit permission to the owner, okay? To have only read and write, the group keeps read as before. But I want to give permission for all other users to read and write because all the other users, look here, don't have the read and write permission. They only have read, which are the last 3 characters that refer to the permissions for all other users. I want to keep everything as it was before, right? The owner will remain as RW, the group will continue to have R, but I want, for some reason, to give RW permission to all other users. I just need to run this command here. Okay, there you go. So if I check again, look here, write permission has already been given to this file, right? And if I run this command here, chmod 664 on this file, what do you think will happen? Okay, so the first 6 means that the owner who is root for this file will get permission 6, which is read and write. The group will also now get read and write permission. The group here, look, is the second character, read and write, and it's currently only got read permission. Look here, only read for the group. And all the other users will have permission 4, which is just read. So the write permission that was given to other users will be removed. So if I run this command, look here, the W permission has already been removed for all other users, and the W write permission has been given to the group. Okay? And it works the same way for directories, but here you would just need to put the name of the directory instead of the file name. Okay? So go ahead and do your tests, your labs, run your simulations, create files. You already know how to use the mkdir command, create directories, set permissions, remove permissions, use absolute and relative paths to reach files or directories, okay? And I'll see you in the next class to run this command here, show, which is also widely used, okay? For Oracle DBAs as well, at some point in your professional career, you will undoubtedly need to utilize this essential command, or at the very least, meticulously check the specific usage details of a particular file. For instance, you might need to verify if the designated owner of that specific